We are dancing for a peaceful world. 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 We are dancing, we are dancing, we are dancing for a peaceful world.
Please don't leave here without the information about engaging with Congress. Find out if your representative signed the LSC. Thank them that they did. Take the toll-free
out that a recent poll, actually done by the University of Maryland, found that almost two-thirds of Israeli Jews were in favor of a nuclear-free zone, even though they knew that Israel would have to give up its nuclear weapons under that. And I think, shouldn't we be more aggressive as a peace and justice movement to push against this monumental hypocrisy of the greatest nuclear power in the world threatening Iran that you can't have nuclear weapons, and Israel having 300 nuclear warheads, saying we didn't sign a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, but we're going to forbid you from having nuclear weapons. I think this hypocrisy has to be pointed out in our work.
The J Street question, here it goes. So J Street was one of the top supporters of the Ellison letter. J Street was critical to get those 37 members of Congress to endorse diplomacy. They are an essential organization for occupying the political center and getting members of Congress who are so squeamish about being courageous on anything to actually take the plunge and stand up for diplomacy with Iran. So I think that the red line, unfortunately for Obama, is going to be getting reelected, and then we'll see if he's going to use some of that political capital to actually affect some change, and actually, instead of just calling for Netanyahu, please stop the illegal settlements, he'll actually say, stop the illegal settlements or else there's going to be a cost. Stop the war rhetoric with Iran or there's going to be a cost. If we can demonstrate that there's a constituency for that, it'll happen. We get the president that we deserve. And so if there's enough of us who are actually standing up and saying this is important and that you can get reelected by taking these courageous stands, I think that that's possible. Democratic system in which a lot of Iranians are extremely unhappy and want their rights. And we can do that. The fact of the matter is war is the greatest abuse of human rights. The war threats are what have enabled the Iranian government to, under this fog, to repress the Iranian people. The threat of, in the 1980s, it was the Iraq War that actually enabled the Iranian government to consolidate power when they were in a very precarious position. Now we have human rights activists who have said, there's actually a report by the International Campaign for Human Rights in Iran. They interviewed human rights activists, pro-democracy movement folks, and civil society actors who said the threat of war and the sanctions that we have in place reduces space for civil society. And it enables the Iranian government to basically say anybody who is protesting against us is playing into the hands of the United States and the West.
We are singing, we are singing, we are singing for a peaceful world. We are singing, we are singing, we are singing for a peaceful world. We are dancing 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 for a peaceful world. We are dancing, we are dancing, we are dancing for a peaceful world.
U.S. support for Israeli policy towards the Palestinians can only be explained through the Israel lobby. The U.S. does not have an independent interest in building settlements and ethnically cleansing Jerusalem and things of that sort. So the contradiction that exists between U.S. rhetoric of supporting Palestinian rights and a two-state solution and what have you, and actual U.S. policy of supporting the undermining of Palestinian rights, that contradiction is where the Israel lobby comes in. So for example, the U.S. calls for an end to the occupation, at least that's their official position, And Israel continues to solidify its occupation of the Palestinian territories, and the US continues its support unhindered. That's a contradiction. The US's position on the settlements in the West Bank is that they are illegitimate. Yet when the UN Security Council votes to condemn settlements, the US vetoes that resolution, contradicting its own policies. This kind of silliness is what can be explained because of the influence of the Israel lobby. So the general picture, I think, is one, it would be correct to say that while the Israel lobby, which is not just AIPAC, by the way, it includes groups like Christians United for Israel and so many other groups. It's not, AIPAC is the most prominent organization, the most powerful one based here with a budget of $80 million and everything. That's the most significant one, but the Israel lobby is much broader than that. So while it's fair to say that the Israel lobby has a counterproductive influence on American foreign policy towards the Middle East, where they're pushing for a confrontation with Iran and other things, it would be incorrect to say that the Israel lobby controls US foreign policy towards the Middle East. But what would be correct, what is accurate, is to say that the Israel lobby plays a critical role in making the US a major obstacle to Palestinian freedom and self-determination. And that's the problem.
Speaking of himself and his wife, is to be good citizens of Israel. Now, he's not a citizen of Israel. He's a citizen of the United States. But when he says, all I want is to be a good citizen of Israel, and he gives $10 million to one candidate, keeping that candidate alive as a candidate, I think that that's a pretty good basis for us to say, really? Really, you people? This is what you want from Citizens United? I think he may well have been going so far overboard that it's a great challenge for us. It's a hard one. But I think that Sheldon Adelson may prove to be just too extreme on his language. He's not doing anything different than a lot of others before him. But the combination of he's richer and given more money, and he's far more honest and open about his beliefs, that's a huge gift for us.
Yeah. We are singing, we are singing, we are singing for a peaceful world. We are singing, we are singing, we are singing for a peaceful world. We are dancing 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 for a peaceful world. We are dancing, we are dancing, we are dancing for a peaceful world. We are singing, we are singing, we are singing for a peaceful world. We are singing, we are singing, we are singing for a peaceful world. We are dancing 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 for a peaceful world. We are dancing, we are dancing, we are dancing for a peaceful world.